Yo, what is up, everybody? We're back from Dallas. We got loot. We got stuff. We got a Buggies t-shirt, and let's talk about it.
Subscribe to Words.
Subscribe to Words.
Subscribe to Words, bro.
Subscribe to Word.
Sub to Words, by the way.
It's literally just us telling people to subscribe to Words. No!
All right, we're back on something a little bit more event-related. Judge staff, hello. If you didn't know me already, Words. I was one of the judges at the Elestrals Open, on top of being staff member and helping setting up a bunch of the event. And if you got any cool stellars or whatnot from your bags from your stellar upgrade, you're welcome. A lot to talk about. If you want to see what I'm talking about in this whole blah, check my description. I should be putting timestamps if I'm not lazy about what I'm talking about at what timestamp. So check that out. Let's talk about the Dallas Open and all the cool things and amazing fun that, well, people had at the event. All right, so I want to start first off with the tournament as a whole. That's the important part. The event was a tournament. So the main event, 192 player premier tournament, largest premier tournament and largest in-person event at about almost 400 people with tournament goers and spectators alike going to this event. Massive, huge undertaking for Elestrals, and it went really pretty dang well. Couple things which are kind of funny because the rounds were really efficient. There wasn't much of downtime between the rounds, and we got through 8 rounds in the day. Pretty straightforward by like 7 o'clock, starting at what 10:30, 11. So about an hour a round, really efficiently. However, it would have been nice to have a break for everyone involved somewhere in the middle of those. Particularly as a judge, we were kind of doing round robin, like going to the restrooms and getting food or getting water. Where it's like, hey, I'm going to run to the restroom quick. Just watch my tables. Or, hey, I need to get something to eat. Can you just take a look at my table quick? So it was a little bit awkward, I think, for everyone not having a break at all in the event. Especially for players who, if you had rounds that went past time, or judges, if you had rounds to watch that went past time, you didn't really get a moment to go and get something to eat, to drink, to rest a moment. It was just kind of go, go, go. So it would have been nice if that kind of... there was a break somewhere, but it was really nice that the rounds went really efficiently. Other than that, the main thing I want to talk about the tournament is just, the tournament, the decks that everyone brought were super varied. Definitely saw a lot of Blistrix, a lot of Tornigen. I do want to talk about Tornigen a bit when I get to kind of judging. And what's really cool, I think, is the top cut was diverse. The tournament itself is diverse. But the decks that took the top 3 spots were all not on anyone's radar to take the event. Like, if someone asked you before Dallas Open what the top 3 decks were going to be, they'll probably say like maybe Blistrix, Lunar Aggro, Tornigen, maybe someone would like stretch out there and say Fives or Tempo or Lunar Nex, like something weird, right? Outlandish. But it ended up being Photosynthesis, which is Earth Solar Artifact Nexus deck. It's really cool. It's Bo, the first place champion's winner's pet deck, who has been playing that deck since Daybreak. And tuning it to the point where, hey, it just won the largest premier event in Elestrals. So shout out to Bo, fantastic person. I had a great time chatting with them as I could after the event. And their deck is just really cool, and it's nice to see someone who's really good at deck building, really skillful at playing the deck that their favorite deck is, and seeing them able to skillfully pilot it all the way to the end of this tournament. So that's awesome. A skillful player with their own unique brew that they kind of worked with was able to top cut. Second place was Lunar Earth Aggro, which was the secret Cabal deck that people whispered about during the kind of starting of the event, before the event, and it was also a very good deck. It's like, you know, just a solid take on the Lunar Aggro Earth stuff from like base set plus Moonrise put together to make a really interesting kind of functioning tempo aggro deck. Really cool, so congrats to Swollex there. And third place was a Wind Toolboxy 5's Pantera deck. So Pantera lives. So it's really cool to see 3 decks that nobody was really on their radar unless you were part of the Cabal top and get to those top 3 places, and really good players who have been playing the game for quite some time getting to that as well. So shout out to everyone in the top 16. Shout out to everyone who went 6-2. I know not everyone got to top cut with a 6-2 record. That is unfortunate. But it's really cool to see the deck building. We saw a lot of Fire Nexus, which was surprising. Like, people are refining Fire Nexus. And again, it's cool to see people that I know from the community, that I've been a part of for so long, who are good at the game, do well at this event, and unfortunately friendly fire themselves through the top cut, because out of all the top cut matches, the majority of the top cut matches were friendly fire where people had to knock their friends out, A, because the Elestrals community is super chill and nice and close-knit, but B, because, well, their testing groups did well, and they tested well together, and they practiced together, so they're really good players, and they all made a top cut, and they had to knock each other out of top cut. Out of Bo and Ari, the first and third place, I believe they're in the same testing group of 5 players, and all of those 5 players made a top cut, and they knocked each other out of the tournament. It was kind of funny, and then, like, Luke Von Karna, Danny, and Swirlax are friends. They knocked each other out. Just, again, good players with good testing groups, good decks, good skill, good intuition, getting to top cut. And I do want to stop on Luke Von Karma quick, because they do play Elestrals, they know the game, but they didn't know the deck going into the event. And they were able to kind of use their TCG knowledge to take a top cut with a solid deck. So really cool to see that even newer players, as long as they're good or have the knowledge of like how to play card games, can do well. So that's also something cool. Just playing skillfully, playing well, and just getting a little bit lucky maybe if you're going against Blizztrix and make a top cut. So it's super cool that the event happened like that. I'm super glad to see really cool, interesting decks in the top cut and making it to first place. Shoutouts to the Urzmog air fryer. So that was super cool. The whole main event was really cool. Let's talk about side events now. And side events is really important for me right now because, well, I ran a decent chunk, or at least started a decent chunk of the side event. Particularly, I did, when I say start a bunch of side events, I mostly handled all the drafts. So if you play draft in Dallas Open, hello, it's me again. Let me know down below how you enjoyed it. We ran 2 drafts, base set draft, well, actually 3 drafts. The first day we did a chaos draft with 1 of every set. That went really fun and well, and one of the players literally went to me, it's like, this is really fun, this format stinks, so don't play chaos draft. Don't play 4 different sets in a draft. The second draft we ran was a base set draft because we didn't have a ton of Moonrise product left day 1. We ran base set draft, and that went really well. Shoutouts to In Vivid Color for taking first place in the first draft. Playing 7 Amp Up Lycavolt deck with some Water Splash. Turns out Amp Up and Lycavolt are really powerful in a format with not a ton of removal. Base set draft went really well. Overall, we ran 4, I think, base set drafts, and they were all really fun and interesting. And it turns out, like in base set, things like, Bears, Terrafernal is a deck. Water Thunder is a deck with like discard shenanigans. Stratamoth is viable if you pull Stratamoth. Really cool decks in the draft format, and base set draft without like PTAs and Gorgons and stuff is actually a ton of fun because there's enough soft removal and hard removal in base set draft to make the format interesting, and there's comeback mechanics with things like if you pull a shield or an earthquake or a boom bat, Sorlet, stuff like that to kind of help in the format. So base set draft went amazing. The decks people came out with were awesome, super fun, and just base set draft went amazing. And then the last draft we offered was Moonrise draft, which is probably out of the 4 sets, base set, Frostfall, Daybreak, and Moonrise. Moonrise is the second best draft format on paper because there's a lot of soft removal, position swaps, walls, ways to ascend, ways to stall for a second to get to ascensions that make Moonrise draft generally a reasonable option as a draft format. The Moonrise drafts also went pretty cool. It was really fun to see decks that popped out of the Moonrise draft, like Nobby Aggro was surprisingly good, even with a Moonrise draft of a bunch of Lunar cards, stuff like that. Really cool to see the Moonrise draft. And some of these people walked out with drafts of the Moonrise draft, and particularly the base set draft, looking like they just built a constructed 30-card deck and brought it to a tournament. Like Wind, Water, like stall stuff with Julian. One guy never played Elestrals, played a basically constructed Thunder Nexus list out of draft. Like, it was wild what people were building. It was so much fun. I do recommend playing draft for Elestrals. And to remind people what the rule set are, is you're going to take 4 packs. You're going to take 1 card out of your pack 1, take it, pass all the cards to your left, and then they'll take the next card, and then you kind of repeat where you take 1 card of each pack gets passed around, and then you go to the right, and you go to the left, to your right, 30-card deck, 15-card spirit deck. It went phenomenal, and the reason the draft went off so well is because people just like playing draft. It was an actually fun format, even though the sets aren't designed for draft, which is a whole nother topic in itself. But the draft is a lot of fun, and it went well. And again, base set, there's tools there. And Moonrise, also there's tools there to make it fun and interesting and back and forth. The biggest problem with the Moonrise draft, though, not to get too far off tangent, is that Moonrise draft is kind of, it goes back and forth really well, really interestingly, until someone kind of sticks Dude plus Ascension. Once you get to the point where you have Dude and Ascension on board, you snowball in the win there because the stall tools that are in Moonrise don't work against 2 Elestrals. Things like Hypnosum or Ectopossum, whichever the one cost of that is, Armadon being a 6, stuff like that, it's hard to come back. And there's not really any hard removal in Moonrise to deal with things except for maybe Noon Moon. So, yeah, back and forth unless things completely go off the wall and someone takes advantage, then you just kind of win. But, yeah, so draft went amazing. Other side events. The first Win a Sheet side event didn't fill, unfortunately, because I think a lot of people stuck it out in the main event at X3 or, X2 a lot longer than they might have, quote unquote, should have, just to play the game. So the first Win a Sheet didn't fill, and a bunch of people got buys. It was a little awkward, but it fired. We had people to play the Win a Sheet. Shoutouts to Julian and Caleb for winning the Win a Sheet on day 1 and splitting that prize. And I don't know who actually decided to win, but hey, cool, they split their prize, they had fun. And all the other side events other than draft and the Win a Sheet that went off day 1 didn't fill completely because people were still playing the main event. So side events day 2 is where things got really interesting because now a bunch of people were out of the tournament. Over 150 people were now knocked out, and people still want to play Elestrals. So what they do for the side events, again, draft format went off the most popular. I believe every every side event popped off at least once until we ran out of prizing pretty quick because we ran out of stuff pretty quick because people wanted to fill and play drafts and all that other shenanigans. So side events popped off. The 64-player side event did fill completely because, again, people were no longer the main tournament. They jumped to the 64 Win a Sheet, which Distant Coder ended up taking his victory there with, I believe, also the Lunar Earth aggro deck that Swolax took to second place in the main event. So, hey, it's a good deck. Check it out. The 64 event went off without a hitch, and a bunch of draft pods popped off until we ran out of prizing for the draft pods. So, again, really cool. So, side events went out fairly well. Main event went off pretty well. So let's talk about judging the event. So, I was a judge at the Open with a lot of responsibility. So, let's start with the first thing the judges did at the event as a team was during the opening ceremony, right before the opening ceremony, because I'm going to paint a little picture here. A half hour before the opening ceremony started, I got asked by, I think it was KG, to go find 5 to 6 people to hand out Firestorm booster packs. I was told this explicitly because I already knew we were handing out Firestorm that day. I didn't know how it was going to happen. But basically I was like, hey, we got half an hour to find 5 to 6 people to go hand out packs to people in the entire venue. And I just kind of turned to Skyhawk, who was there. I was like, hey, we can just get the judges to do this, right? And Skyhawk's like, that's a great idea. We need to have a judge group anyway. So he said all the judges assemble at the front desk right before the opening ceremony. We all went back there and just like, hey, all the other judges who aren't already know this, we're passing a Firestorm. Here's a box. Get ready. In like 10 minutes, put on your Oprah faces, and we're going outside to hand packs. So it was like, oh, this is going to be super cool. We just kind of planned to just walk out in a big train when it got announced and just go and pass out packs. So first thing judges did was pass out Firestorm packs, which is hilarious because 30 minutes before, none of the judges knew that we were going to be passing out Firestorm packs. So that was super fun. Just like, hey, rally the troops, found the troops instantly because, hey, we have a judge chat to get everyone in and go pass out Firestorm packs. So that was super cool. Here's a little bit B-roll from right before we passed them all out. But yeah, we collected back there with our boxes, joked around, pulling all the cool cards out of the box, but everyone loved that. And now judging the main event. So let's talk about judging the event. Day 1, all the judges were just, the reason side events didn't fire off until the third round of the main event was because we needed to be there for the main event. We had a judge team of 9-ish, I think it's 9 people total, to run the whole event with, and one of those judges had to be at the stream clash, and then Skyhawk was doing random deck checks, which takes up 10-15 minutes at the start of each round. So we had about 6 to 7 judges actually in the whole event for 190 something people, which surprisingly is a pretty good ratio. It's like 25 people, 29 people I think was the math per judge, which is actually a significantly small amount of people to have per judge compared to other events. So that was actually good that we had so many judges. And that went well. I mean, we didn't really have any major issues with players other than just answering judge calls. Obviously, the big elephant in the room with judge calls is that there were a couple of missed calls on the stream clash. I do want to say, and this is something I talked to Skyhook about, is just the judge on the stream clash was responsible for the spirit totals on the stream, as well as making sure the game state's going, as well as, you know, the pressure of being on the stream and all that jazz. So it was a little hard for the judges to consistently keep track of everything while pushing buttons to make sure the spirit totals are correct and yada yada yada. Something that's going to be addressed in the future to make sure that it's not as problematic. There's no missed like hurricane pops, etc. on stream. But other than that, the most common judge call that I think in the entire event was Tournigen. This was kind of alluding to before. So Tournigen, when you reveal the 3 cards for Tournigen's effect to randomly add 1 to your hand, the randomly added card to your hand will end up back in your hand revealed, so your opponent knows what you added to hand off Tournigen. Apparently, I was talking to some people, different locals do this differently based on other games' rules. This is Elestrals, and because Tournigen and the Elestrals rule set doesn't specify that the cards that you search off Tournigen get hidden at any point after the search, since search has the revealed kind of keyword locked into its definition. When it's randomly added to your hand, your opponent will know what's randomly added to your hand. They do know that if you search EQ Laurel's Ambrosia and you randomly get Ambrosia, that Ambrosia is in your hand. They know that. The other 2 go back into your deck. So that's the most common call in the entire event because it's ambiguous to other games' rule sets. And yes, there's some ambiguity with the rules, but currently as ruled, because there's no instruction to hide that information, even though it's random, you get to know what card gets added to hand. So that was the most common call, I think, in the entire venue every day for the most part. The second most common call, the most common call for me, because I was running the draft table, was what happens when Foamy and Charn's Obel trigger at the same time? Yeah, I'm not kidding. That's the second most common call I got, because in draft, Charn's Obel is just a way to cycle cards. A lot of people were playing it, and a lot of people were playing Foamy and Scout. Surprisingly, a lot of people had the question of what happens when 2 kind of destruction triggers happen at the same time that are either one's opponent, one's yours, or both are your beneficial triggers. And that's pretty straightforward. If both are your triggers, you can stack them onto the chain in any way you want. If one is your opponent's trigger, it goes player turn, non-player turn order. So if you are the turn player and your Charn's Obel's triggering and your opponent's Elestrals also triggering, you put yours on the chain first as the player whose turn it is, and then your opponent puts theirs on. So generally, whoever's turn it's not, will activate first because they're the higher chain link 2, right? So that was actually my second most common call. My most fun call was someone who asked me to explain siphoning spirits to them, which thankfully they're like, oh, that makes sense. After less than like a minute, like it was a really quick call. It's like, hey, what is siphoning? My opponent mentioned it, and I need to know what's going on with this whole thing. Can I like ascend into Elestrals and yada yada yada? So thankfully, pretty straightforward with that call. It's just, hey, when you ascend Elestral, you can pull spirits off your dudes, as many or as little you want from your dudes. To your Elestral, remember enchantment rules and misenchant, underenchant rules, etc. apply to your Elestrals, but generally you can just pull spirits off, and only one Elestral that you are ascending is the ascending Elestral, so things that stop ascensions won't stop siphoning. And they were like, oh, that makes perfect sense, and they seemed to get it. They moved on. So really cool there. Judge calls generally weren't too difficult for me because they didn't have anything super complicated, which was cool. And then judging side events. So running side events, I just ran a bunch of drafts, and I loosely watched and ran the winner booster box table for day 2 of side events. That went pretty well without a hitch. And the funniest part about that was I turn around after starting the timer for the final round for the winner box side event, and I turn around, I was like, okay, here's your timer, you guys ready to go? 10 minutes later, I see them packing up, like, your game's already over. And the winner box side event on day 2 literally ended with a fully Morfrost, not Blizzard, just Morfrost deck versus a Blistrous deck. And as 2 Frost decks went, They just milled themselves and burned themselves to death with Frost decks and finished their 2 games of the final match of their Win-A-Box event in 10 minutes, just playing Frost and burning themselves out. And just, again, less than 5 minutes a game on average for that, which was hilarious. Just turn around and be like, you guys are already done. So judging was really cool. Shout out to all the other judges. Off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to name them all, but I interact a lot with like Wayward and Rearson, Skyhawk, Siberian, Purple Pancake, Kelly, your trooper. They weren't feeling that well during day 2, and they still kind of stuck it out at the end of day 2. So, and the other judges, I'm sorry, I don't know your names off the top of my head. I forget everyone was there, but you guys are all awesome. The judge staff in general pitched in a bunch during the setup of Dallas Open on Friday morning. Some of them just showed up and was like, hey, you need help? I'm here to help. And started setting things up with us, even though they're not proper staff. They're just judges for the event. Shout outs to all you guys that were there for that as well. Thank you. Yeah, judging was great. Super filling. It was awesome just to help people and just watch these crazy fun scenarios go on, running draft events, stuff like that. And shout outs also to Tyler and Helen, TOs, for all the events. They were running all the draft events and the side event and the main event. The 2 of them pushing everything through cardio and all that jazz by themselves, just the 2 of them. Helen wasn't even expecting to work and run this event. She came with me and got a stellar upgraded spectator badge and was like, I'm going to just help out where I can, and I expect to play some side events day 2. And she worked the entire 2 days at the TO booth with Tyler, pushing everything through and making sure things went smoothly. So shout out to Helen. I'm not biased, but shout out to her for not even showing up to work and ended up working and helping the entire event. Thank you. I'm not biased. She's my girlfriend, but shout out to you, babe. And Tyler, again, also, the 2 of them were running and pushing every round for every event, scores, side events, all that. The 2 of them were powerhouses and they pushed through it all. It was a lot because, again, we had a bunch of draft events and side events popping off all at once on day 2, where we had at one point it was like 4 draft pods concurrently running, a Win-A-Box going, and the 64-person event going. So they were doing 7 events with the main event for day 2 all at the same time, keeping track of all those games and pushing rounds every single time. So shout out again to Tyler and Helen for doing all that. Amazing job, and they did a lot. So we're going to be talking a lot about things. So so we talked about the venue, the tournament, the judging, etc. The vibes were immaculate. Everyone was there happy to have fun, and I have so many funny stories that I could just go on for hours and hours and hours about all the amazing things that happened at the event. So I want to talk about just a few fun interactions I had. So starting off, I had randomly put a message in the Dallas Discord about wanting to go to Buc-ee's but not being able to because A, was too busy and was just slightly too far away. So shout out to Frosty P and I believe your daughter for getting me the Buc-ee's t-shirt, which I traded for a Morlith for, and they asked me to sign it. So that was really fun. Also, Frosty P and your daughter, I'm pretty sure that's your daughter, are 2 hilariously fun people. They came to me after round 1, it's like, I'm going to be at the loser bracket or losers tables all day. And Frosty P lost his game 1, was telling me how he lost it. And his daughter basically goes along the terms of just like, yeah, my dad failed, or like, my dad scrubbed out or something, she said. And I just died laughing internally. Like, she's just like, yeah, my dad stinks at this game. But she had a good time. She went to trade night and played games and had fun too. So really cool people. Shout out to you 2. Thank you for showing up and making little moments of my day really fun, because you 2 were awesome. Also, fun interaction I had with Super Insane, where they come up to me. They had the infamous Drataya Waspire FTK deck, and he goes like, hey, you want to play a game against the FTK? And I thought about it a second. I was like, not really. And then I kind of was like, wait, how about you go over there into the corner, play it out, and let me know if you win, because you're playing the FTK. And we both kind of died laughing. So that was super cool. The booster box wall also was just a staff thing where we're just kind of cleaning up after setting up all your stellar upgrades and mats, etc., ready to go. And myself, No Brainer, and KG. I think it was just the 3 of us, but basically I was just like, what do we do with all these boost boxes? We can't just destroy them. It's like, what if we just build a wall? like a Kool-Aid Man wall for Dan, and then we realized, okay, well, it's not really feasible to build a wall for Dan to charge through, but we could build a wall and tape it together and put it outside. So if you guys saw that booster box wall outside, that was us just having fun putting something, just like, what do we do with all these booster boxes? Build a wall, put it outside, and let people see it. So if you enjoyed that booster box wall or took a photo in front of it, you're welcome. Next time we'll build a throne, maybe. But yeah, super fun to do that. Other fun things that happened. Because there's so many Elestrals players in the area, my girlfriend and I, Helen, we went to Waffle House, and we're sitting at Waffle House, and what do you know, while we're sitting at Waffle House, Distant Coder, Trishula, and K-Cray all walk in to get lunch, and we're just kind of like, wait, is that Trish? Yes, it is. So we go and hang out with Distant Coder, Trishula, K-Cray at Waffle House, and while I'm there, I'm just kind of like, oh, let me just send a message out. I'm like, oh, hey, we just ran into these people at Waffle House. And then who shows up next? A-Drive. Mr. Dan himself was like, hey, I saw your message about Waffle House, and I came over to hang out and get some food too. So people just wandered into the Waffle House near the venue because, well, I mean, A, all the Elestrals players are there, and B, it's just like funny that just literally Thursday, where there's not a ton of people there yet, we ran into like all the people who play Elestrals. And also, shout out to Coder, who literally, like, one of the first things that they asked me when we sat down with them was like, hey, are either of you playing in the event? No? Great. Let us tell you about the Cabal deck, the secret hidden tech, if you promise not to tell anybody. And Coder kind of spilled the beans on the Earth Lunar deck to me day 1, or day 0, I should say, which is super funny. Just like, everyone wants to talk about the deck that they want to bring, but also they kind of have to hold it close to their heart so that they can kind of hopefully get a one-up on people with their surprising deck building prowesses, so to speak. So that was super fun. The food that I went to 3 different large dinners with people. Great. It was just nice to see everyone in general. Shout out to everybody who came up to me and asked me to sign their Jatayas. You guys are all amazing for that. The one person that brought an EFT to me, also amazing. EFT Jataya. Let's go. He's back. Just so much to talk about. There's just so little time. But yeah, I'll stop with that, with just the fun stuff that happened. Just fun little interactions. It was just great to meet everyone in person, and the amount of times where people go, oh, hey, Wirtz, it's nice to meet you in person. I have to go, who are you again? It's like, and it's just like, oh, I'm such and such from Discord. Shout out to like Seven Shadow, who I met the last day. And he's like, oh, who's you? He's like, oh, I'm Seven Shadow. We used to chat all the time. I'm like, dude, amazing to meet you in person. It's been forever. Let's take a photo. Like, it was just great to meet everybody, and it was funny to see some people go like, oh, it's Wirtz, cool. And then I believe it was Soren Plays, who was like, no, you have to tell him who you are. It's like, no, I know that's Wirtz. That's Wirtz, I know who he is. And Soren's like, no, he doesn't know who you are. And he's just like, oh, yeah. So it was just fun, just the being able to see people's faces and kind of put faces names was super amazing. Everything was so much fun. The ragtag team of Elestrals, including myself, we somehow pulled it off. Biggest shout outs in the world to like George, to Dan, KG, like everybody, everyone, Silver Beanie, like all these guys that flew in. To put in perspective, the amount of people that flew in for this from staff, we had staff that flew in from Italy, I think the Netherlands, Japan, Canada, El Salvador, East Coast, West Coast, like tons of people flew in from staff to make this work. Judges flew in from everywhere to make this work. People drove 18 plus hours to get to this event, and the vibes were immaculate. So shout outs to staff, shout outs to the players, shout outs to the players on Thursday who said, oh, you guys need help? Let's jump in and help. So some of the community members jumped in and helped us on Thursday unloading the truck and stuff like that. And hopefully they didn't steal any product. But shout out to all you. The community is amazing. Be like, hey, you guys need help? We're here to help. Let's jump in and help you if you trust it. So amazing, super fun. Just there's so much good stuff that happened in this event. Again, I could be here forever. We're pushing like half an hour in this video, so I'll just kind of end this with, it was amazing. It was so much fun. I would do it again and again and again. And if this is the first event and it went this well with hiccups that, hey, not to say nothing bad happened. There's significant amounts of hiccups and things that can be improved upon, but as for the first event, I think it went pretty well. It was super fun, and I am super proud with what happened, and super happy the community the vibes were great. Again, if people want to talk about the vibes were fantastic. Everyone was super happy to be there. Everyone respected each other. Everyone was just there to have a good time, have fun. and just the community is great. Every interaction I had with the community was phenomenal. The only downside was maybe I talked too much or too long to some people, and I didn't get to talk to everybody. That is not a bad thing. The fact that there's so many people there to see, and I didn't get to see everybody, but every interaction was phenomenal, was amazing. So thank you, everybody. This is just my yapping about Dallas, and I hope to see you guys in the future, at future events, future videos. See you guys in the next one. Peace.